Matt Birk, Brigadier General Rich Gross, Eric Hipple, you guys are all here on behalf of the After the Impact Fund. And General Gross, really what this does is it brings athletes and veterans together. You're giving them money, you're giving them services. What are some of the overlapping issues that you see both former professional athletes and veterans dealing with?
Well, first we find the two populations have a lot in common even before they have these injuries they have to deal with. They're used to playing on teams, they're used to working together, high levels of training, they're used to taking coaching and leadership, but we're also unfortunately seeing that a lot of commonalities in the injuries they're getting. We're starting to find CTE in the brains of some of the military who've gone through IED blasts or other attacks there. And we've seen the similar injuries, obviously, in retired NFL players, and they're dealing with some of that as well. Yeah. So you've got common injuries in the two populations.
We just saw recently, Eric, that the NFL, one of the highest executives in health and safety, admitted that there is a link between football-related head trauma and CTE. Knowing what you do now, does it change your view of the game?
No, it really doesn't. I think it comes to your own personal decision to make. But if you know what the consequences are, and you're able to make that judgment, is it worth playing the game and all the things that you get from it for this percentage of injury that might be out there. So it doesn't change my mind. They made the game much safer. The rule changes, the protocols, and so I think if you take the hitting during practice, out of it, then it makes quite a bit of difference of how many times you are getting hit in the head.
Matt, how difficult is it for athletes to seek out this kind of help?
It's hard. I mean, as a football player, you're taught that you can overcome anything. You just kind of work through it. That you're tough enough, and that's kind of what it takes to play in the NFL. And when you're done and when you're hurting, it is hard to reach out and say, I need help. I think that's one of the great things that's come out of the last 5 or 10 years. Is this is in the conversation. We know that these issues are very real. And the culture has changed where it's okay for a player at any level to say, hey, I might have a concussion, and coaches recognize that and they respect that. I think probably when Eric played, guys were less forthright with information and didn't want to admit those kind of things and pull themselves out.
Yeah, but even now, Eric, for example, you have Jerry Jones who called the science absurd, linking football and CTE, or you'll have Roger Goodell who says you can get hurt sitting on your couch and sort of minimizes a little bit how brutal the game can be. Even Donald Trump said that the game's getting soft. I mean, these are people in high positions of power. When they talk like that, what's the message that they're sending?
I think part of that message is don't overreact completely. And I think there's some merit to that. I mean, what we see injury-wise and the guys that we're treating, it's not just head injury or it's not just trauma. It's a combination of that and the transitional pieces to go along with it too. I mean, just that transition itself is somewhat traumatic because you take everything that you've done since you're 7 years old and it just comes to a stop. And so what I've noticed, what we were seeing in former players actually is they're getting classified. So if you start having trouble, well, it must be a substance problem, so you're drinking too much, so they put you over there. Or if it must be a psychotic problem, so we're going to put you in the psychiatry. And there's not anything there in that middle ground that actually looks at the person and say, let's figure out and unwrap this and see what's going on with this person. And then we can get to the complex issues. And that's really what the After the Impact program is about, is finding that individual treatment for that individual person,
sure,
whether it's a veteran or a player.
You sought that treatment yourself after you attempted suicide by throwing yourself out of a car at 70 miles per hour. It's so sad that your son at 15 years old took his own life. What do you want people to know who are struggling out there?
Well, first of all, that they're not alone, because that's what I felt. It was like 6 years after I was done playing, and even though financially I was doing really extremely well, but it was that loss of not identity, not knowing who you are, and nobody to talk to or nobody to turn to, and you think you're the only person going through it. And so when I got to the point where I thought maybe my family would be better off without me, that's how worthless I felt, is when I had my event. And I see that with a lot of players and even veterans, that they think they're the only ones going through this, and they're not. And I think that's the biggest picture, is not knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah. General Gross, do you see that veterans can really learn from athletes and vice versa?
Absolutely. It's amazing when these two are talking about what's going on in their population and their culture. It's the same thing we've been dealing with in the military now. What we've seen, and Eric was really one of the ones who first saw it, is this amazing thing where you put a couple of veterans together and put them through a program, they do pretty well. You put a couple of football players through the program, same thing. But you take them out of their comfort zone a little bit, pair a football player with a veteran, take them through the same program, it's amazing the synergy they get and how much better their treatment goes, how much more effective it is. And that was really the brainchild behind After the Impact Fund, is let's see if we can find a way to fund and group these folks together and send them through the treatment together. And it's been amazing so far. About 4 years so far that we've been doing it, and Eric was really the one who came forward and said, we need to start a fund, start a new center where we can do this on a regular routine basis.
That's fantastic. Although it becomes institutionalized, right, Matt? I mean, through the institution of the NFL, through the institution of, the military, it's hard to break that pattern, isn't it?
It is. Like I say, we're just kind of wired and trained to be a certain way. But there's such a mutual respect between the two populations, and I in no way want to try to compare what we do as football players to what our servicemen and women do. But I was always amazed when I played, when active or retired servicemen and women would come out to our practice and speak to us, and they would talk about the respect and admiration they had for football players. And I think part of that comes from when they're deployed. The NFL, those games, that's what they look forward to every week. Like, that's their escape from what they're dealing with over there. And so I think that it's built on this foundation of respect that the two have for each other. And we're all about teamwork. And we've got, after the Impact Fund, it's the Independence Fund, it's the Eisenhower Center, the NFLPA has been funding this work. So everybody recognizes that we have a problem and we need to fix it.
And of course, for more information, aftertheimpactfund.org is where people can go to get in touch with you gentlemen and the people who are working with your fund. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great work you're doing.
Thank you very much.